She was a young mother, devoted to her family.
She was a provider, a protector.
She was a person that gave her all.
There's nothing that she would not do for her child.
But there was one thing missing.
She wanted to be loved.
She thought the time clock was ticking away.
Until she met the man of her dreams.
She thought he was actually the one.
She was really excited.
They began to talk marriage.
But would wedding bells ring?
It was very, very hard to even grasp what was going on. I didn't know what to think, who to believe, what to trust.
Or was there more to this love story than anyone knew?
You're dealing with someone that has a controlling personality that was living this double life.
Take this.
And the truth is going to hit closer to home than you think.
You know this gentleman?
July 11th, 2011. It's a quiet Monday in River Forest, Illinois, an upscale suburb on Chicago's north side.
River Forest, Illinois, is one of the wealthiest suburbs in the Chicagoland area.
It's just a beautiful town in the middle of a really otherwise urban surrounding area.
People come from the other communities around us to walk, to jog. We're really just known as a safe community.
But this affluent community is about to be rocked by a shocking crime.
Oh, my God!
Around 10 p.m., the police got a frantic 911 call.
911, what's the industry emergency?
The caller is 39-year-old Devin Bickham Sr.
He was absolutely distraught. He was hysterical. He was crying. He was screaming.
Eventually, he managed to tell the dispatcher that he was calling from a popular park in River Forest.
What is going on?
My brother got shot!
The victim is 29-year-old Shervon Alexander.
Mr. Bickham stated that they were sitting in their vehicle when a guy ran up to them and shot at the car.
Who shot your girlfriend?
Oh, God!
Devin said it all happened very fast, and he didn't get a good look at the shooter.
Is your girlfriend breathing?
No,
He just kept repeating that she was gone.
Okay, we're just in help you, okay?
For Chicago native Shervon Alexander, family was always number one.
We did a lot of things together. We had a lot of fun. We would laugh a lot.
She was just joyful. She loved family. She truly loved family.
She was always such a happy person, lovable person.
But Shervon also had a serious side.
She was interested in law enforcement.
She went to college. She got her associates in criminal justice, and then she went on and got a bachelor's in criminal justice.
She wanted to make a difference.
However, despite her academic success, Shervon considered her greatest achievement in life to be her 9-year-old daughter, Ayanna.
Ayanna, that was the joy of her life.
She was like a best friend. She was a hero. To have someone like that in your life, you could be very lucky. She was a provider, a protector, an individual that just was selfless and always there for me.
Shervon was a wonderful mom. She was a loving mom.
It hadn't always been easy, though, since Shervon and Ayanna's father were no longer together.
She believed she found love for a while, but it was young, so it wasn't nothing stable enough for her to keep for the long run.
She was looking for love. She wanted to settle down.
And in 2010, Siobhan met a man who promised to make all her dreams come true, Devin Bickham Sr.
He was an ex-Chicago police officer.
He was also an entrepreneur.
Devin had a business delivering furniture for several big retailers.
And he knew how to treat a lady.
You look great.
Thank you. So where are we going tonight?
It's a surprise.
They would have nights out on the town, just really enjoy each other.
Siobhan found her Prince Charming. He swept her off her feet.
She loved him so dearly.
Devin also made it clear that he was more than willing to become a father figure to Siobhan's little girl.
He tried to build a relationship with her daughter.
Hey.
It was pretty cool. He would want myself to call him dad.
Devin had an older son from a previous relationship, so he wasn't new to the whole dad thing.
Devin Sr., he would bring him around. They all play basketball together.
Hey, Ayana. How you doing, pretty girl?
I think they'll get along.
So I hear you like to play basketball.
He was such a kind person whenever I was around him. That was the brother I never had, seriously.
In fact, Devin and his son were such a welcome addition to the family that in just 6 months, Devin and Siobhan were engaged.
They were talking about who's going to be the bridesmaids, what their colors was going to be and everything.
I was glad for her because I felt if anyone deserved true love, she did.
But now, Siobhan may never walk down the aisle.
Devin had just called 911 to report Siobhan had just been shot while sitting in their car at a park in River Forest.
We're going to send help to you, okay?
Waiting for police to arrive, Devin dials Siobhan's mother. But it's Ayana who picks up the phone.
Hello?
My grandma and I were at the table playing cards, and he calls saying, your mom has gotten shot. And originally, I just took it like, stop playing. He said it again, and at that moment, it just felt so surreal.
Hello? Slow down, Devin.
Devin was, crying, hysterical.
It just sound delirious,
What?
Eventually, the message came through.
By then, I knew it was real.
When first responders arrive at the scene, Devin is still in a panic.
When I first arrived on scene, I saw Devin Bickham Sr. screaming frantically and on the phone.
The police found Miss Alexander in the passenger seat with multiple gunshot wounds.
However, contrary to what Devin told the dispatcher, Siobhan isn't dead.
She was actually still clinging on to life. There was still hope that Siobhan would make it.
But while EMTs race Siobhan to the hospital, will detectives be able to piece together what happened?
No one was prepared for what they'd uncovered.
It was terrifying.
And it probably became one of the more bizarre cases that our agency has investigated.
Seven months into their whirlwind relationship, Devin Bickham and Siobhan Alexander were planning a wedding.
She did express to me that he loved her and that she loved him and that she was ready to settle down.
Looked like to me we was getting ready to get us a wedding going.
But will the happy couple ever say, I do? At 10 o'clock on the evening of July 11th, 2011, Devin makes a panic-stricken 911 call from a suburban Chicago park.
You say your girlfriend got shot?
When the emergency crew got there and get her loaded up and go to the hospital.
While the ambulance rushes Siobhan to the emergency room, detectives arrive and pull Devin aside for a brief statement.
As soon as we arrived at the park, We started to coordinate information from Devin Bickham Sr.
Still extremely distraught, Devin tries to walk detectives through what happened.
We were just having dinner with the family, man. We just wanted some alone time.
They decided they were going to go to the park just to talk.
They've been to that location before. The park over there is extremely safe. The neighborhood's extremely safe. And of course, it'd be a great location if you wanted to sit there and talk with someone and not worry about being bothered.
But even the safest place can be dangerous.
Once they were at the park, Devin Sr. said that they were talking briefly, and that's when they noticed someone in the bushes.
What is he doing over there?
I don't know. We should probably leave.
While they were talking, a African-American male in a white shirt jumped out of the bushes.
And according to Devin, the man had a gun.
Get down! Get down!
He fired multiple rounds into the vehicle, which struck Siobhan Alexander.
Mr. Bickham said that he rolled out of the driver's side onto the ground to avoid being shot.
Devin says that when the gunfire stopped, he jumped up and chased after the assailant.
Even though Devin wasn't armed, he was a former cop, and chasing after a suspect was still kind of a reflex.
Devin never caught up to the suspect, but was able to give detectives a general description.
He said the gunman jumped in the passenger side of a gray sedan and sped off.
It was last seen going south, so that information was relayed over the radio to other officers in the area.
Then, as the gunman and his driver sped away, Devin had turned his attention back to Siobhan.
Oh, my God!
When Mr. Bickham returned to the vehicle, he was absolutely positively sure that Miss Alexander was dead. And that's when he made the 911 phone call.
911, what's your emergency?
Detectives have little reason to doubt Devin's story.
The parking spots where the vehicle was parked was not well lit at all at the time, and really someone would have been able to run up and ambush the car very easily.
He would be obstructed from any view from the street.
His story also fits the evidence detectives find at the scene.
They recovered several shell casings.
Fired by a .380 automatic, they're on the ground outside the passenger side window.
They found the casings exactly where Devin said the shooter had been standing.
But that's not all that confirms Devin's account of the shooting.
We were able to locate a couple of witnesses who were actually inside of the park. They were two juveniles.
They hadn't seen the shooting, but they did hear it.
The teenagers said they were hanging out at the park, and all of a sudden they heard 3 or 4 bangs.
In fact, one of the teens had called 911 almost at the same time as Devin Bickham.
911, what's the address of your emergency? Hi, I'm at Priory Park in River Forest, and someone just got shot. Okay, slow down. Did you see the person that shot her? We saw someone run.
The teenagers said they saw a African-American male running down the parking lot.
Did you see what kind of a gun he had? I didn't see anything on him.
They went to go see what it was, and they discovered a man on the phone crying.
This man was just screaming saying his girlfriend got shot.
The man that the teenagers did find crying was Mr. Bickham.
The teen's story had basically confirmed everything that Devin told detectives.
But the biggest confirmation comes less than a half-mile away.
After Devin Bickham gave the description of the vehicle and of the offenders, that car was stopped about 12 blocks away.
Inside were 2 males, and those 2 males were wearing white shirts.
The occupants were taken out of the vehicle.
Is one of them the shooter? While searching the vehicle, officers find a gun.
That gun was located underneath the seat.
The firearm itself was a Lorson .380, the same caliber as evidence found at the scene.
It looked like the case was basically solved.
All detectives need is one final confirmation.
We transported Devin Bickham to the area of Harlem and Madison, just north of Madison Street, to identify the two individuals.
You recognize either of these as a shooter?
I don't know. It just happened all so fast.
But then, as the officers begin to haul the suspects away, Devin tells them to wait.
You recognize one of them?
Devin said it wasn't because he was the shooter.
Mr. Bickham revealed to them that one of the two suspects was actually his son.
That's my son.
In 2011, Chicago was one of the deadliest big cities in America, with more homicides per capita than Los Angeles and New York City. However, neighboring River Forest is considered one of the safest cities in the metro region, with 1/9 the violent crime rate of Chicago.
Hold on.
Devin Bickham Sr. has just revealed to detectives that one of the men they suspect of shooting his girlfriend, Siobhan Alexander, is actually his son, Devin Jr.
Obviously, this is like a big shock to the police officers.
And it wasn't a random act of violence. I had Devin Bickham Sr. as the caller, and Devin Bickham Jr. was pulled over. That obviously that there was a relationship between the two.
Do you know this gentleman?
Devin also identifies the other man as 35-year-old Cardell Taylor.
Detectives had wondered why Devin didn't say he knew the men in the first place.
That definitely raised a lot of red flags for us, that he failed to initially identify his own son and the other subject, Mr. Taylor, at the scene when the officers had brought him there.
Was it simply shock at the sudden realization that his son might be involved?
Up to that point, detectives hadn't had any reason to doubt Devin's story.
He's the one who provided the description of the male offender and said that he was wearing a white T-shirt, left in a silver car.
Basically, if it wasn't for Devin Sr., the police never would have pulled his son over in the first place.
It's just such a coincidence that the males they were looking for happened to be related to him.
Then, as detectives put DJ and Cardell into the back of a squad car to bring them in for questioning, they get an unsolicited clue.
Police officers hear Cardell tell DJ that he wanted his money.
Yo, when I'm gonna get my money, playboy?
When are you going to pay me? Can I get the rest of my money?
They could be possibly dealing with a murder for hire.
While officers drive Devin Sr. and the two suspects to the station for formal statements, Siobhan's family races to the hospital.
Officers had called Siobhan's next of kin to tell them where they were transporting her.
I sped and rushed down there as fast as I could.
So when I finally got to the emergency entrance to where they had taken her, I noticed that Darius had made it there.
What I can remember is I asked the doctor, is she going to be okay? I remember he shook his head, and I broke down and started crying.
Siobhan was pronounced dead shortly after her arrival to the hospital.
My mind at the time, I couldn't believe it. But I'm thinking this has got to be a big joke, you know. I couldn't actually believe that my daughter was gone.
The family has barely had time to process the news when detectives arrive.
By the time I arrived at the emergency room, she had already been pronounced dead.
While Siobhan's brother comforts their mom, her cousin steps up to answer some questions for detectives.
He was upset, understandably so. I let him know that we would do everything we could to get to the bottom of whoever was responsible for her death.
I appreciate that.
He really wanted to catch the guy who did this.
Although at that point, he knew even less about the shooting than the detectives.
He told my aunt that he chased after the guy.
Devin had called her and told her someone came out of the bushes and they shot Siobhan several times.
Devin's statements were all very consistent.
However, according to Siobhan's cousin, there's one thing Devin hasn't told detectives.
Devin was actually married.
So there's an ex-wife?
Not exactly.
He said that Siobhan had recently found out that her fiancé was actually still married.
I didn't know he was actually married till later on in the relationship. It was just very upsetting to me.
But now detectives wonder, was anyone else upset about what appears to be a love triangle between Siobhan, Devin, and his wife?
When officers were bringing Cardell in, he made a strange statement to DJ about wanting his payment.
Yeah, when I'm gonna get my money, playboy.
They're already suspicious that Siobhan's death was a murder for hire. And Devin Sr.'s wife would have an obvious motive.
It could have been a domestic issue. It could have been the wife who found out about this affair.
Thank you for your time.
Hoping to learn more about Devin's marriage, detectives head to the station to get his formal statement.
When they told Devin that Siobhan was dead, he appeared very shaken by the news.
Devin also seems eager to help detectives find out who's behind Siobhan's murder.
The first question was about his marriage, and Mr. Bickham did not deny that he was married.
He was pretty forthcoming about that.
Devin says he'd been just as forthcoming with Siobhan.
Siobhan knew all about the marriage. However, he did say that his wife was not aware of his relationship with Siobhan.
But according to Devin, she was about to find out.
He had been planning on divorcing his wife.
Hours after she was shot to death in a suburban Chicago park, Siobhan Alexander's fiancé, Devin Bickham Sr., has just told detectives that he was planning to leave his wife in order to marry Siobhan. But according to Devin, his wife, 32-year-old Tammy Denton, was still in the dark.
Yeah, I hadn't told her definitely yet.
Mr. Bickham stated to the officers that he was for sure that his wife, Tammy, knew nothing about him and Miss Alexander's relationship.
But now that Siobhan is dead, detectives aren't so sure.
Tammy could have gotten wind of Devin's affair and decided to save her marriage by taking out the competition.
And if so, had she recruited her stepson DJ to carry out the plot?
Devin claimed that DJ and Siobhan had never had any issues.
Let me see your hands.
But if that was the case, why was he driving what detectives believed to be the getaway car?
After having dinner that night, they decided to go to the park.
Devin said on the way, he got a call from Devin Jr., and he may have mentioned that they're on their way to the park.
My son knew where I was going.
But when detectives ask Devin if he owns a gun, it begins to look even more likely that his son DJ is involved.
I had a weapon that was given to me as a kid, but I don't know where it is.
His wife, Tammy, did not like guns, so he kept it hidden away.
But according to Devin, it had recently gone missing. Was it possible Siobhan had been shot with her fiancé's gun?
We recovered a .380 Lorson, and we had .380 cartridges at the scene over at the park.
The detectives showed Mr. Bickham a picture of the weapon that was recovered in the gray sedan, and he definitely confirmed that that was the missing gun.
That gun was actually a gift from Devin's marriage to Tammy.
Which strikes detectives as no coincidence.
It was definitely starting to look like Devin's wife had been behind Shervon's murder.
Asking Devin to stick around in case they have any more questions, detectives move on to his son, DJ.
Detectives thought that if his stepmother was involved and they leaned on him hard enough, he would give her up.
It could have been the son who was upset with his father. The father could have been the target and the wrong person got killed.
Asked about the shooting, DJ denies any involvement.
DJ's alibi for his time during the shooting that him and Cardell were, in fact, at Cardell's girlfriend's house.
And I picked him up. He was on his girlfriend. And where's that? I'm on free and late.
The address he gave detectives was in the same general area that they were pulled over.
But his explanation for how the gun ended up in the car is far less plausible.
He told the detectives that someone had threw the gun into his car.
I didn't say he's in my car anything. So let him on that.
Which we found probably less than truthful.
Why would somebody throw a pistol at you? I have no way.
Especially since DJ's dad has already said the gun was his.
The officers showed DJ the same picture of the weapon, and he confirmed that that was definitely his father's firearm.
What are the chances that your father's pistol is used in the shooting that somebody randomly throws into your car? Okay, that's a pretty big if, right?
Realizing he's in over his head, DJ says he's ready to tell detectives the truth.
He said that after he and Cardell left Cardell's girlfriend's house, that Cardell directed him to a place near the park.
DJ tells detectives Cardell directed him to a street corner near the park.
Cardell got out of the car.
I'll be right back. Bye.
He said a few minutes later, he heard gunshots. And after that, he saw Cardell run into the car.
Go. Drive. What happened? Just drive. What happened? Just drive.
But detectives still don't buy DJ's story.
Why did he tell you you were going there? He did. No, he did not.
But under pressure from detectives, DJ finally lets something slip.
Shervon was pressuring him to divorce Tammy.
Obviously, you can't marry someone that's already married.
DJ said the affair his father was having with Shervon had gone too far.
Detectives investigating Shervon Alexander's murder have just had one of their suspicions confirmed by her fiancé's son, DJ Bickham.
DJ said that the relationship of his father and Miss Alexander is what led to her murder.
But even though DJ had more or less named Cardell as the shooter, he wouldn't say why he did it.
With DJ stonewalling them, detectives turn to 35-year-old Cardell Taylor, the man they suspect killed Shervon.
Right now, we know what you did. You know what you did. Okay. Now what you need to figure out is...
Backed into a corner, Cardell starts talking.
Cardell told investigators ultimately probably the most consistent story in the end. He kind of explained how the whole chain of events happened.
He begins by admitting that someone had hired him to kill Shervon.
Who are we talking about? DJ.
But was DJ the mastermind, or simply the middleman?
Is there somebody else involved?
He said he only knew what DJ told him.
DJ's son told you what? He's trying to evade matters. Then who's trying to up her marriage? I don't know. You don't know her name, but she's trying to up whose marriage?
Cardell's story confirmed DJ's claim that the murder was over his father's affair with Siobhan.
Okay. Did you ever have a conversation with DJ where he mentioned his dad wanted the son?
It seemed very, very likely that Mr. Bickham's wife, Tammy, was behind this hit.
But whoever arranged to have Siobhan killed, her death hadn't cost them much.
What kind of money are we talking? Oh, 100? Okay.
And that's amazing how cheap life is, that someone's willing to take anyone's life for $400.
Cardell says that once they'd agreed on the price, DJ had picked him up and they'd driven to the park.
What did you do while you were in there?
He took some Vicodin, some Oxycontin, and he said he passed out in the passenger seat of DJ's car.
Sometime later, DJ woke him.
Dale, Cardell, take this.
He told them that he got the murder weapon from DJ.
I'll be right back. Bye.
You done and you walk across the street. What did the gun look like? It was black. It was black. Okay. You walk across the street, and then what happens?
Cardell said when he walked up to the car, he didn't expect to see Devin Sr. there.
You didn't know what was going to be in the car. DJ didn't mention that she's in this car with my dad, so be careful. You really didn't expect him to be there?
It became clear to us that DJ and Cardell hadn't spent a lot of time carefully planning their actions because it was pretty disorganized.
Get down!
Still, Cardell had done what he'd been hired to do.
You start shooting.
Once they have Cardell's confession, detectives turn back to DJ.
There's no thing that's come to light that you didn't allude to before, okay?
Now that the detectives have identified as DJ as being the middleman, they are trying to find out if Tammy is behind the hit.
But when detectives pressure DJ about the details of Cardell's confession, he reveals that it wasn't his stepmother behind the murder.
You him this gun for what reason? To do the job of my father.
DJ revealed to detectives that his father was the mastermind behind the hit.
Why? Why did your dad want this gun? None of the evidence because he wanted to get rid of it.
DJ tells detectives that his dad started dating Siobhan while separated from his stepmother.
But they told him that they got that covered.
According to DJ, that had caused some problems between his dad and Siobhan.
She was pressuring him to divorce Tammy. She was also threatening Mr. Bickham to tell Tammy about the affair.
So, according to DJ, his father had come up with a plan.
DJ said it was around April or May that his father had asked him if he knew someone that would kill someone for him.
That's when DJ introduces his father to Cardell.
Plan A was to take her to a motel and kill her at a motel. This is as premeditated as it comes.
But according to DJ, on the evening of the murder, his father made a last-minute change to the plan.
Hey,
Hey,
we still doing this?
yeah.
He told me to leave my house. He was going to the park.
Growing up without a mother was difficult. Yeah, I did have a grandmother that loved me just as much, but we all kind of understood that it would never be the same. My mom was like a best friend, like my hero. The person that I know if I'm having a bad day, I talk to, I'm okay. And growing up, knowing I don't have that person anymore, it became so surreal.
Devin Bickham Sr.'s son, DJ, has just revealed to detectives that his father was the mastermind behind the murder of 29-year-old Shervon Alexander.
DJ said that Shervon was urging his dad to divorce his wife, Tammy, so that they could get married.
DJ also walks detectives through the events leading up to the murder.
He called me and said he's going up to a party.
According to DJ, Devin had coordinated the whole thing.
We still doing this?
Yeah.
When detectives bring Devin Sr. back into the interrogation room, he denies everything.
It wasn't. It wasn't. No.
Even when detectives inform him of DJ's confession, Devin Sr. still denies any involvement.
We were brought all the time to this. You went out. There's no way that pretty much how you did it.
Devin Sr. begins weeping and says that his son is a liar.
I did what's the same stuff I did.
Not that Devin's denials do him any good.
They then went ahead and arrested Mr. Bickham, DJ, and Cardell.
The news that her fiancé is behind the murder stunned Shervon's family.
I just didn't think a human being could have so much hate in their heart to do something like this to somebody that she thought loved her.
It was terrifying to find out Devin had been involved, let alone find out at all that someone that she loved and cared about could do that to her.
Although the family doubts DJ's claim that Shervon was threatening to tell Devin's wife about their relationship.
She knew right from wrong. She was not the type of young lady that would break up a family.
She thought that they were getting a divorce.
I think that when she found out that he was living this double life and he probably was not planning on leaving his wife, I believe Shervon got to a point that, you know what, if that's what you want, that's fine, but I want out. And I believe that's when he decided to take matters in his own hands.
Now it's up to the justice system to ensure that Devin's held responsible for Shervon's murder.
To help secure a conviction, the prosecutors offered DJ a plea deal if he would agree to testify against his father.
But in the end, DJ takes his chances at trial.
For some reason, he thought that they were gonna beat it.
Father and son stand trial together in May of 2014.
Mr. Bickham and his son DJ were tried together in front of separate juries.
The prosecution opens by claiming that Devin Sr. knew exactly what he was getting his son into and exactly what was going to happen that night when Cardell Taylor approached his car.
The whole thing was arranged by Mr. Bickham. It was coordinated by his son DJ, who provided the gun for Cardell.
Then, while Shervon lay dying in the passenger seat, Devin dialed 911 and began covering his tracks.
Devin's frantic 911 call was nothing but an act.
Who shot your girlfriend?
To prove that he did know, prosecutors present the jury with Cardell and DJ's taped confessions, as well as Devin's phone records.
There was significant communication between DJ and his father shortly before the homicide.
The text messages were very specific. Devin Bickham Sr. was asking Devin Bickham Jr. where he was at. It shows the premeditation of everything that took place.
In the end, the jury agrees, finding Devin guilty of murder.
Mr. Bickham was sentenced 95 years with no parole.
I think it was Judge Love that told Devin that she was going to make sure that she give him enough time that only way that he'll come out of there is out of a pine box.
Devin's son also pays a heavy price.
DJ was also found guilty of murder and sentenced to 50 years in prison without the possibility of parole.
A few months later, Cardell Taylor's murder trial also ends in a guilty verdict.
Cardell was sentenced with 70 years with no parole.
I'm glad that Devin Jr. and Cardell will never, ever get a chance to do this to no one else again.
But despite all the pain Devin and his accomplices caused, Shervon's family has found it within themselves to forgive.
I have no hate in my heart for them. I would encourage them, go before God and ask God for forgiveness.
I actually pray every night that each and every one of them have peace with God.
And the family also knows that no amount of time served will ever bring back the one they loved.
My sister's gone, but she's not forgotten.
I miss her so much. I wish she was here.
There's no one else like her that can take that spot or that void.
She's gonna always be in my heart, no matter what.
All of circumstantial evidence that was impossible to climb over: the gun, the timing, the shell casing, and the chilling notes in the Palm Pilot. The jury heard how Lycos had preyed on the elderly, how he had used his bedside manner to mask $1 million scam, and finally, how he had silenced a nurse who only wanted to tell the truth. They saw the shell of a man who had traded his Hippocratic oath for a handful of silver. He was convicted of the fraud, but the murder charge carried the heaviest weight. The law in Illinois was clear about the murder of a witness. On May 5th, 2005, Ronald Lycos was sentenced to death. Today, he sits on death row in a federal prison in Terre Haute, Indiana. A man who once saved feet, but ended up destroying a life in a basement sanctuary. He is a ghost of a doctor waiting for the final procedure. Chapter 13, The Echoes of Betrayal. Years have passed, but the echoes of the Baptist Foundation and the Lycos trial still ring in the ears of those who survived. Charles Labosco, the patient who received kickbacks from Lycos' fraud, pleaded guilty and avoided jail, only to die a year later. His legacy was one of complicity, a reminder that fraud often needs silent partners. In Arizona, the properties of the foundation were liquidated. Some investors eventually received about 70 cents on the dollar, but the math of restoration never truly added up. You couldn't refund the lost years of retirement, the broken health, or the shattered confidence in the church. I still pray, Robert Shaw said, looking at a small photo of his daughter's graduation. He had managed to pay for it, cent by cent, car wash by car wash. But I don't pray for money anymore. I pray for the strength to forgive, even if I'll never forget the faces of the men who lied in the name of God. Chapter 14, The Prison Yard Reflections. In the sterile, gray exercise yard of the federal prison, Bill Kratz often walked in circles, his eyes fixed on the distant, shimmering horizon that reminded him of the Arizona desert. He still wore his dignity like a suit that no longer fit, his shoulders square, despite the weight of his 8-year sentence. To the other inmates, he was a curiosity, the man who had built a kingdom on paper and lost it to the truth. It was a workout situation. He would whisper to himself, his fingers tracing invisible ledger lines in the air. If they had just given us more time. The market was turning. God was testing us. He refused to admit that the test had been failed years ago in the secret rooms where Allah was born. He lived in a sanctuary of his own making, a fortress of denial where he was still the genius, still the shepherd, still the man who could do no wrong. He didn't see the faces of the 11,000 people he had ruined. He only saw the missed opportunities and the attacks from Satan. In another part of the country, in the high-security silence of death row, Ronald Michaels sat in a cell that smelled of bleach and cold stone. He had lost the charm, the charisma, and the sandwiches. He was a man reduced to a number, a doctor without a practice, a killer with no more witnesses to silence. He spent his days reviewing his own mental Palm Pilot, replaying the Sunday night in the church basement over and over. He didn't feel remorse for Joyce Brannon. He felt anger at the shell casing he had left behind, at the digital notes he hadn't deleted, at the permit he had renewed too late. He was a man of logic who had committed an act of pure, irrational desperation. I was a good doctor, he would tell the walls. I visited them. I cared for them. Medicare owed me that money. They were going to die anyway. The vanity that had driven his fraud was the only thing keeping him alive in the dark. He couldn't accept that he was a murderer. He was a victim of a system that didn't understand the microsurgeries of his life. Chapter 15, The Legacy of Stewardship. Back in Phoenix, the Southern Baptist Convention had changed. The steeples were still there, but the word stewardship was now spoken with a cautious, almost fearful tone. The trust that had been the foundation of the community was now a fragile, repaired thing, full of scars and reminders of the BFAS collapse. The Pope was in prison, but the ruins of his temple remained. The nursing homes that were never built, the food banks that received only a fraction of what was promised, they were the invisible monuments to the altar of greed. Pat Anderson eventually found peace, though her husband Bill never quite recovered his full strength before his heart finally gave out for the third and last time. She lived in a small apartment, surrounded by the Uncle Sam lawn ornaments he had carved in his final, desperate months. They were her most precious possessions, far more valuable than the 10% interest checks that had turned to ash. He died believing he'd failed me, she said to her pastor one Sunday morning. But the only ones who failed were the ones who forgot that you can't build the kingdom on a lie. Robert Shaw eventually moved back to a small house, far from the one he had lost. He still washed cars occasionally, the rhythm of the suds and the water providing a kind of meditative penance. He had found a new church, a modest, non-denominational one, where the pastor didn't wear expensive suits and the brochures didn't talk about investment opportunities. I don't look for Moses anymore, Robert said, watching his daughter receive her diploma, a ceremony paid for with honest, back-breaking labor. I just look for the truth. It's the only thing that actually sets you free. Epilogue, the weight of the truth. The Arizona sun still bakes the Phoenix asphalt, and the wind still howls through the Chicago neighborhoods. The buildings remain, but the lives inside them have been permanently altered. The scars of the altar of greed are hidden but deep, woven into the fabric of the communities that were targeted by men who claimed to serve a higher purpose. In Chicago, Joyce Brannon's name is spoken with reverence in the halls of justice. She is the benchmark for civic courage, the reminder that a single, honest voice can bring down a million-dollar empire of deceit. She is the saint of the basement sanctuary, the nurse who cared more for the truth than for her own safety. Bill Kratz and Ronald Michaels both thought they could outrun the truth by using the language of faith and medicine. They both thought that their titles attorney, president, doctor would protect them from their deeds. But in the end, the ledgers were balanced, and the truth, though heavy and bitter, was the only thing that remained standing. In the silence of the church basements and the high-rise offices, the lesson remains. When you take a person's faith, you take more than their money, you take their world. And for that, there is no interest rate high enough to pay the debt. The altar of greed is always hungry, but in the end, it only consumes the ones who built it. The end. The alchemy of ink. The rise and fall of the H to H38 Empire. A novel based on the true account of Albert Talton. Prologue, The Specimen Vault. In the heart of Washington, D.C., there is a room that does not exist on any public map of the city. It is a place where history is measured in cotton, linen, and the scent of chemical ink. They call it the Specimen Vault. Behind several layers of biometric security and armed guards, the walls are lined with floor-to-ceiling steel drawers, each containing the shattered dreams of thousands of men who thought they could outsmart the United States Treasury. Kelly Harris, a forensic expert with eyes sharpened by decades of looking at things most people ignore, pulled open a heavy drawer. The air inside the room was climate-controlled, preserving the evidence of a century of greed. Inside lay a $100 bill, pinned to a velvet backing. To the untrained eye, it was Benjamin Franklin staring back with his usual stoic wisdom. But to Kelly, it was a ghost. This one was different. She whispered, her voice echoing against the sterile walls. In the long history of counterfeiting, a crime as old as the nation itself, most forgeries were the work of master engravers or desperate men with offset presses that weighed tons. But this bill, part of the notorious H2H38 strain, was the product of a quiet revolution. It wasn't born in a high-tech lab or a foreign basement. It was born in a townhouse in Lawndale, California, birthed by a man who saw the American dream not as a goal to be earned, but as a code to be hacked. This is the story of Albert Talton, a man who turned hairspray into gold and newsprint into an empire, only to watch it all burn under the relentless gaze of the law. Chapter 1, The Engineer of Inglewood. Albert Talton was never a man of small ambitions. Growing up in Inglewood, California, in the late 70s and 80s, the air was often thick with the scent of jet fuel from lax, and the underlying tension of a neighborhood where making it usually meant surviving until Friday. Inglewood was a place of deep contrast tree-lined streets, with well-kept lawns shadowed by the reputation of Inglewood, always up to no good. Albert was the outlier. While the other kids were looking for trouble on the street corners or joining the burgeoning gang culture of Los Angeles, Albert was in his garage, surrounded by wires, circuit boards, and the smell of solder. He had the hands of a surgeon and the mind of an electrical engineer. He didn't just play music. He wanted to understand why the bass from a Bose speaker felt like a physical heartbeat against the chest. One afternoon, his friend David Goldberg watched in awe as Albert disassembled a high-end Bose radio he had acquired. "What are you doing?" "Al, that's a $300 system," Goldberg said, leaning against the cluttered workbench. Albert didn't look up. His soldering iron hissed against a circuit board, a small plume of blue smoke rising into the air. "They're charging for the name." "Dave, I want to see the math. I want to know how they get that much air to move in such a small box. It's an acoustic waveguide. It's just geometry and physics. If I can replicate the geometry, I can replicate the sound." Within a week, Albert hadn't just fixed the speaker, he had replicated its internal waveguide using scrap plastic, wood, and his own calculations. He built a car stereo system from scratch that hit harder and cleaner than anything sold in a showroom. It was his first taste of the copycat high, the realization that with enough patience and attention to detail, the world's most expensive secrets were just puzzles waiting to be solved. But the legitimate path was slow and frustrating. After high school, Albert enrolled in electrical engineering courses, but the academic pace felt like a crawl. College was a grind of theories, debt, and professors who didn't understand his practical genius. He dropped out, his brilliance untethered from a degree. He began doing dirt, the local slang for the hustle. He realized that the same mind that could decode a Bose speaker could decode a financial document. He forged checks, a crime that landed him in a cell in the 90s. He committed bank fraud in 2001. Each time he went away, he didn't learn to stop. He learned how not to get caught next time. By 2004, Albert Talton was 41 years old, a two-time felon working at a body shop. He was a man with a Ferrari brain stuck in a Hyundai Life, sanding down fenders and mixing paint for customers who didn't know his name. Chapter 2. The Kitchen Laboratory. The startup cost of the greatest digital counterfeiting operation in American history was less than $200. Albert went to a nearby Staples. He didn't buy a printing press or professional engraving tools. He bought a Hewlett-Packard all-in-one printer-scanner-copier. He set it up in his kitchen in his townhouse, the fluorescent light humming overhead like a digital cicada. He laid a genuine $100 bill on the glass. The scanner light crawled across the paper like a blue laser, digitizing Benjamin Franklin into millions of pixels. The first few dozen attempts were embarrassing failures. The colors were saturated, the lines were muddy, and the paper felt like exactly what it was cheap office supply stock. U.S. currency isn't paper, Albert muttered to himself, his eyes bloodshot from staring at a monitor late into the night. It's cloth, 75% cotton, 25% linen. You can't print cloth on a laser jet. The ink just sits there, laughing at you. He began a period of intense research. He discovered that certain types of recycled newsprint had a high fiber content that, when treated and pressed, mimic the unique snap and feel of a real bill. But the ink was the problem. Albert's breakthrough was a technique he called the glue and fold. He realized that if he printed the front of the bill on one ultra-thin sheet of newsprint and the back on another, he could hide the security features in the middle, like a sandwich. He began sketching the watermark by hand with a diluted white ink on the inside of the paper before gluing the two halves together. For the security thread, he used a thin strip of silver polyester film with USA 100 micro printed on it. When bonded with a specialized industrial adhesive, the security features were embedded inside the bill. But there was one final hurdle. The pen. Iodine-based ink reacted with the starch found in wood-based paper, turning black. Albert found the secret in the beauty aisle. Aquanet hairspray. Specifically, the super extra hold version. It created a microscopic, starch-free barrier that prevented the iodine in the pen from reacting with the wood fibers. Chapter 3, The First Transaction. Albert didn't want to rely on faith. He needed proof. On a humid Tuesday evening, with a single H to H3 $800 bill tucked into his wallet, Albert drove to a liquor store 3 towns over. His heart was a steady hammer against his ribs. He chose a bottle of mid-shelf whiskey, something common, and brought it to the counter. The clerk, a man whose face was etched with the boredom of 1,000 shifts, rang it up. $22.50. Albert handed over the bill. His eyes didn't move from the clerk's hand. The clerk pulled a yellow detection pen from behind his ear and ran it across Franklin's forehead. Albert held his breath. The line stayed a pale, translucent amber. Your change, the clerk said, handing back $77.50 in real, government-issued currency. Albert walked out of the store into the cool night air, the whiskey heavy in the bag. He didn't even want the drink. He wanted the $77. He had just turned a fraction of a cent's worth of newsprint and a mist of hairspray into $77 of real freedom. That night, he didn't sleep. He sat in his kitchen, the blue light of the monitor illuminating his face. and he started to dream bigger than Inglewood had ever allowed. Chapter 4, The Shadow Market. As the Lawndale Mint began its first full-scale production, Albert realized that making the money was only half the battle. Moving it was where the real danger lay. He needed a buffer. He summoned Troy Stroud to his townhouse. Stroud was a man of the streets. I don't want to see this money being spent in Lawndale, Troy, Albert said, sliding a fresh stack of hundreds across the coffee table. This isn't for the corner stores around here. This is for the big chains. Target, Walmart, Macy's. Stroud picked up a bill and snapped it between his fingers. The sound was a sharp, satisfying crack. It feels right, Al. They built a pyramid. At the top were Talden, Stroud, and McCory. Below them were the brokers and men who bought the bills in bulk. These brokers then sold smaller packs to the passers. By 2006, the system was a well-oiled machine. The H to H38 bills were flowing into the registers of Southern California. Albert began to see the fruits of his labor. He wasn't sanding fenders anymore. He was a king in a kingdom of paper and ink. Chapter 5, The Invisible Empire. The true strength of Albert's operation lay in its anonymity. In the drug-infested corners of South Central and the gang turfs of East LA, the H to H38 notes became a secondary currency. Gang members who usually dealt in cocaine or heroin found that selling counterfeit cash was cleaner. There were no bodies to dispose of, no rival territories to defend with gunfire, just a steady stream of funny money that felt indistinguishable from the real thing. It's better than the white powder. Man, a lower-level distributor told Troy Stroud during a midnight meeting at a car wash. The feds look for drugs. They look for bodies. They don't look for a guy buying a Big Mac with a crisp 100. But the gang involvement brought a different kind of risk. The risk of silence. Gang members didn't talk to the police. They had a code. If someone was caught with a fake bill, they took the rap. They told stories about selling a car or getting paid for an odd job in cash. Albert watched from his distance, fascinated by how his invention was reshaping the local criminal economy. He wasn't just a counterfeiter anymore. He was a central banker for the underground. He began to feel a sense of godlike detachment. He was the one who decided how much wealth flowed into the streets of L.A. I'm stabilizing the neighborhood. Paul, Albert said to McCory one evening as they watched the sunset from the balcony of a new apartment. I'm giving people a way to survive without the violence. I'm the ghost in the machine. McCory looked at him, worried. The ghost usually gets caught when the machine breaks down. Al, we're moving too much. We're making too much noise. Chapter 6, The Mechanics of Betrayal. David Goldberg wasn't a criminal by nature. He was a friend who had seen a chance to pay his bills. But as the months turned into years, the smell of the ink started to make him sick. One night, Goldberg stood in Albert's garage, watching the money dry. It hung from clips like ghostly linen, hundreds of Franklins staring at him with accusing eyes. He thought about his children. He thought about the fact that every time he walked into Albert's house, he was committing a federal crime that carried decades in a cage. We should slow down. Al, David said, his voice barely a whisper over the hum of the printers. Slow down. Albert laughed, his eyes fixed on a computer screen. The demand is at an all-time high. Dave, Stroud wants $500,000 by Friday. We aren't slowing down. We're scaling up. David looked at his hands. They were permanently stained with black ink around the cuticles. He realized then that he wasn't Albert's partner. He was just another component in the machine. And components, he knew, were replaceable. Chapter 7, The Woodland Hills Mirage. Success didn't just change Albert's bank account. It changed his reality. He began to live a life that was a carefully constructed mirage. A suburban dream funded by a secret factory of lies. He moved Allison Sewell into a sprawling home in Woodland Hills. To the neighbors, they were a successful, upwardly mobile couple. Albert would arrive in his silver Aston Martin Vantage. The engines growl a symphony of status. He wore designer clothes that hid the ink stains on his fingertips. But inside the house, The tension was rising. Allison saw the cars, the 7 flat-screen TVs, and the bags of designer clothes, but she also saw the shadow in Albert's eyes. He was always calculating, always listening for a siren that hadn't come yet. Where is it really coming from? Al, she asked one night, looking out over the manicured lawn. You say it's consulting, but you're always in that garage or at that townhouse in Lawndale. You're never actually at an office. I told you, baby, I'm building something, Albert said, sipping a glass of expensive cognac. I'm solving a problem that the government couldn't solve. I'm making sure we never have to worry about a 9 to 5 again. It feels like we're living in a glass house, she whispered. Albert didn't respond. He was thinking about the next batch of 20s. He was thinking about the Staples reward card and how close he was to his next free ink cartridge. He didn't see the glass house. He only saw the view. Chapter 8. The human cost Maria's bodega. While Albert was enjoying the spoils in Woodland Hills, the ripple effect of his innovation was hitting the streets in a far more brutal way. Maria, a 60-year-old grandmother, ran a small bodega in East LA. Her profit margins were razor thin, measured in cents on gallons of milk and packs of cigarettes. One Tuesday afternoon, a young man in a hooded sweatshirt bought a $20 phone card and a soda using a crisp $100 bill. Maria did what she always did. She took out her detection pen and ran it across the note. The line stayed a bright, reassuring amber. She handed the young man $85 in genuine change money she had earned through 12 hours of standing on her feet. On Friday, Maria went to the bank to pay her rent. The teller fed the $100 bill into a high-speed counting machine. The machine made a sharp, stuttering sound and spat the bill back out. I'm sorry, Maria, the teller said, her voice full of practiced sympathy. This bill is counterfeit. It's part of that H2H38 strain we've been seeing. But the pen said it was good. Maria stammered, her heart sinking. They found a way to trick the pens. I have to confiscate this. I can't give you credit for it. Maria walked out of the bank $85 poorer and $100 short on her rent. To Albert Talton, that 100 was just a piece of newsprint and a few cents of ink. To Maria, it was the difference between keeping her lights on and sitting in the dark. The alchemist wasn't just copying money, he was stealing time and survival from the people least able to afford the loss. Chapter 9, The Cold Trail. For the Secret Service, 2007 was the year of the Cold Trail. Special Agent Matthew Mayo was drowning in red pins on his map. The H to H38 strain was appearing everywhere, not just in LA, but in Las Vegas, Phoenix, and even as far east as New York. It's a ghost operation, Mayo told his supervisor. We arrest the passers. They say they found it. We arrest the street dealers. They say they bought it from a guy in a mask at a park. No one knows the printer. It's like the money is falling from the sky. Mayo spent night after night in the evidence room, staring at the enlarged images of the bills. He looked for a flaw, a singular imperfection that could serve as a digital fingerprint. But the alchemist was too careful. Every bill was a perfect copy of the one before it. He's not changing the plates, Mayo realized. He's using the same source file, H to H38. He's so confident in the quality that he doesn't think the serial number matters. This arrogance was the first crack in the wall. Mayo knew that if he could find the pattern in the distribution where the bills were appearing first each week, he could find the center of the spider web. But Los Angeles was a big web, and the spider was staying deep in the shadows. Chapter 10, The Global Bleed. By early 2008, the Lawndale Mint had gone international. A stack of H to H3800s had been seized at an exchange booth in London's Heathrow Airport. Another batch turned up in a casino in Macau. In Washington, D.C., the Treasury Department was growing frantic. The stability of the U.S. dollar relied on the world's faith that it couldn't be faked. If a man in a California townhouse could replicate the security features of the world's reserve currency with off-the-shelf parts, that faith was in jeopardy. We aren't just looking for a criminal anymore, Kelly Harris said during a high-level briefing. We're looking for a systemic threat. This isn't one guy with a scanner. This is a factory that is devaluing the currency of the United States. The pressure on Agent Mayo doubled overnight. The mandate was clear. Shut down the H2H38 operation, or the global economy would start asking questions the Treasury didn't want to answer. Chapter 11, The Forensic Maze. In the specimen vault in D.C., Kelly Harris was beginning to notice a pattern that would haunt her for the next 2 years. It's the serial numbers, she said to an intern. Most digital counterfeiters are sloppy, but this guy, he's used the same plate positions H2 and H38 for over $1 million in currency. He's arrogant. He thinks the physical quality of the bill is so good that we'll never look at the numbers. She examined the edges of the note under a 400x magnification. Look at the ink. It's not bleeding. And the paper. It's high grade, recycled newsprint. While Kelly was decoding the bill, Special Agent Matthew Mayo was hitting the streets of Los Angeles. The H to H38 strain had become the office's top priority. The break came on January 14th, 2008. A low-level passer tried to buy $1,000 worth of designer clothes with all 10 identical bills at once at an H&M. The cashier hit the alarm. Mayo interrogated the suspect, a man named Marcus. I understand that you're facing 10 years, Marcus, but if you give me a name, maybe we can talk to the DA who sold you the money. I only know a guy they call Troy. He drives a white Range Rover. Chapter 12, The Sneak and Peek. With the name Troy Stroud, the Secret Service began a clandestine surveillance operation. They followed Stroud's Range Rover for months. Mayo and Puentes decided it was time for a sneak and peek warrant. They entered Stroud's residence while he was in Las Vegas. Nothing, Mayo said, standing in Stroud's kitchen. There's no manufacturing equipment here. He's just a distributor. But then Mayo noticed a crumpled receipt for a car wash in Lawndale in a trash can. On the back, someone had scribbled H to H38. The investigation shifted to Lawndale. They found the name, Albert Talton, a two-time felon working at a body shop, living in a townhouse far beyond his means. Neo and Puentes set up a command center in a hotel across from Talton's townhouse. They watched as Albert washed his trash cans and moved his luxury cars. They watched the blue glow of printers through the upstairs windows. Chapter 13, The Art of the Deal. Inside the townhouse, Albert was beginning to feel the pressure. The demand was growing. We need more printers, Al Goldberg said. The HPs are burning out. By 6 more, Albert said, use the Staples card. I want the reward points. Albert was obsessed. He had moved to 20s. If we get the 20 right, we own the city. People spend 20s without thinking. On May 7th, 2008, Stroud called. He needed $1 million in hundreds, the largest single order in the history of the Lawndale Mint. Across the street, Agent Mayo heard every word through a directional microphone. Tell the tactical team to gear up, Mayo said. Tomorrow is payday. Chapter 14, The Noose Tightens. The final 48 hours of the Lawndale Mint were a blur of frantic activity. Albert hadn't slept in 2 days. The air in the townhouse was toxic with the smell of wet ink and hairspray. He had 6 printers running at full capacity, their mechanical chirping a constant reminder of the deadline. The Stroud order is almost ready, McCory said, his eyes bloodshot. But the neighbors are looking at us. Al, a guy in a suit has been sitting in a sedan down the block for 3 hours. Albert didn't look up from the cutting board. It's a public street, Paul. People sit in cars. Finish the bundles. But Albert felt it to the static in the air. The ghost feeling was fading, replaced by a cold, heavy weight in the pit of his